Hi, this is JR. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today I'm going to a very special event. I'm going to see Elvis's granddaughter, Riley Keough, in London. And her book is released today. And as you know, Riley's mother, Lisa Marie Presley, was working on this book before her death. And after the terrible tragedy, Riley listened to all the tapes Lisa Marie had recorded, and she finished work on the book. I'm going to go to the theatre now, so let's go.
YouTube. I'm Adrian.
I'm off YouTube.
I'm Adrian.
Yeah. Oh, nice to meet you.
I thought I recognised you.
Yeah, that's me. Nice to meet you, Adrian. Thank you.
Yeah, but I've had that sent to my nephew.
Excuse me.
Another round of applause for Riley Keough. So, I have been fortunate enough to read this book already. It was quite an emotional weekend reading this. But to start with, Riley, I just wanted to ask you, this is obviously a recollection of your life with your mother, Lisa Marie Presley, but also your mother's book that she'd started and she wanted to complete before she sadly passed away. At any point during this process of making this, did you think, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to write this book?
Yeah, often. It was very emotional, so I would kind of complete a chapter and then put off doing the next one. So it was kind of a slow process.
Just on a kind of personal level, how have you found doing events like this and launching the book and talking about it? Are you taking care of yourself in that as well?
I don't know how to take care of myself other than sleep well and eat, but I'm doing those things. I think that there's something about this that felt very daunting, but I also think that sharing like personal stories with people can be like cathartic in a way. When she was there weren't really rules, and she was kind of like the queen of Graceland when she was, 3, 4, 5. And she was, kind of a little bit of a tyrant, I think. But she just really loved the freedom she had there, and she would drive around on her golf carts and boss everybody around and try to fire people. And then I think when she would go home to her mother's house, it was a much more scheduled, probably more normal, routine life, and she hated that.
Could you tell us about the time that she really wanted to go ride roller coasters with her dad, but the kind of how fun but also terrifying that was?
Well, because the gun thing? Oh, I mean, it's very American.
I was gonna say, like in the UK,
I think you guys are more scary than Americans. Yeah, he took her to, you know, the amusement park in Memphis, and they would ride on the roller coasters. Like, he loved roller coasters, she loved roller coasters, and he took her, and he rode the roller coaster, and he had his hand on, I think she says he had like one hand on the thing and the other hand on his like gun in his pocket. But she didn't tell it like as if she was afraid. She just said, you know, that scene, I know that sounds crazy, but it was the South, and you know, that's just how it was.
How it was, yeah. And also with that sort of not people saying no to her, the sort of consequences that come with that as well when you're so little to, you know, you're a mother yourself now, like, can you imagine if you just let your kid do anything they ever wanted to do?
I think it came from a place of wanting to make her happy, and I think that he really liked to, like, kind of create these, or like, he loved like grand gestures and giving people gifts and making people happy and surprising people, and so I think it was coming from that sort of place with him of just wanting her to have everything.
She talks about her drug addiction, which didn't come for her, she says, until she was 40, which I'm not sure is something that a lot of people have quite realised, that it was quite late on in her life after the birth of your twin sisters. But the opening of one of the chapters is just talking about the addiction she had to the prescription medication she'd been given for that birth, saying that it escalated to 80 pills a day, which is almost inconceivable to think about.
I know. I can't believe, you know, she was a really tough, I don't even know how she survived that, to be honest. But it's a strange story, the like later in life addiction, but I think it's actually a lot more common than you would think. And opiates are extremely addictive. It's a huge problem in America. Now there's more like regulations and it's a little bit harder, but it's extremely hard to beat an opiate addiction. And she did, you know, and that's something I like to also remind people is she did get through her addiction, which I don't think we anticipated because it was so intense. And like you said, she was taking so many pills. But she was able to beat it, which is also can be uncommon, you know.
Do you have a lot of anger about that as well? Just the fact that she was able to get hold of that much medication? I guess a lot of that comes with if you have the money, then it's easier.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely when you are like a celebrity, there are rules that are bent a bit, I think. And there were moments where I say in the book that I would call doctors and try and convince them otherwise, but she was Lisa Marie Presley and they would listen to her. So I think maybe that's a pretty, common story in addiction and fame and that kind of thing. Curfew and rules and those sorts of things, like she was actually quite strict. We had to be home and, I was never allowed to stay out as late as my friends. There always had to be a parent there. She had to go and check, so she was quite strict with that kind of stuff. And like our food, like I couldn't drink Coca-Cola when I was like 17. And I smoked cigarettes back then. And I remember being like, what? This is so crazy.
You should let you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, but she was like, sugar, you can't drink sugar. I don't know. It was like, so she had rules, but they were, random.
So is there anything that kind of pops into your head about, would she come and kind of drag you out of a party if you like miss curfew, that kind of thing?
No, but she would, like if anyone ever was mean to us, she would walk onto the schoolyard and like regulate the situation, which is very embarrassing.
How exactly would she regulate it?
I think she would go to the kid and like get mad at them. It was terrible. Most kids were afraid of my mom. And most of my friends growing up were afraid of her and would come through the kitchen and not say anything and just go to my room. But she really would appreciate the ones who did talk to her. because she was intimidating, but it was because she was just so, she didn't have the ability to like small talk or like pretend she wasn't feeling how she felt. So I think her honesty made people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But to me, it was always just funny. Elvis's music depends on the song for me. If it's like a fun song, I like it. If it's emotional, it's hard. Just because I think that our relationship with his music was dictated by my mom's kind of sadness and grief, and we felt her as a child. So there was like sadness, I think, there. But for the most part, it's like I just feel very lucky to have all of these things. I have so much.
One of the other themes that comes up a lot is the sort of loyalty that your mum had for people around her in her family, but also how that often came hand in hand with being betrayed by people. And Michael Jackson was somebody that let her down desperately, the way that it's told in the book. How did you feel kind of like revisiting some of those stories on that side where people were taking advantage of your mum and she knew it was happening because she was rich and she was Elvis's daughter?
Well, I think with Michael, I don't think that she knew that was happening. I think that there were just people around who would put things like when there's that level of sort of fame, there's always people around who are putting things in your head and trying to like divide and conquer, and that's just kind of part of the environment. I think that their marriage ended because they were both very large, like alpha type people, and it kind of exploded. I wouldn't say that he betrayed her. She never felt that way. But there was a lot of love there, and I think that until he passed away, when she would feel vulnerable, and she does say that she learned this from him, she would cut people off, and I think she did that with him, and I think not until he passed away was she able to like release whatever that was. It was an incredibly, it was just another moment of like great loss in her life.
Yeah, and again, she kind of talks about in the book being at Graceland when Elvis dies as well, but seeing people around her then, and she's like tiny at this point, but seeing people like literally grab stuff from the house and the impact that would have on somebody so little too.
I think that it was very hard for her to find like genuine connections with people because of the Elvis and the whatever kind of energy that brought around. A lot of the time it was like, people had agendas and so yeah, I think it was that always broke my heart for her. Like, she didn't have a lot of really great friends in her life, but she did have some. She had a lot of her relationships and friendships were very wonderful and real too.